This is one of my favorite gardening methods to teach because it has been embraced by so many urban farmers seeking to become self sufficient. The goal of the square foot gardening method is to grow in abundance in a small space. Also, because this system is very structured, it is easy to care for. Yes, you do still need to weed. I get a lot of questions about self sufficiency in small spaces. I've had two farms, one 12 acres and one 20 acres, and I use square foot methods along with others on both of them. We will talk more about this particular bed in a minute. Hi, I'm Amy. I was planted and raised on a Kentucky farm, and I started selling in farmers markets as a teenager in the early 80s. That's me with my pony Tony. Square foot gardening focuses on gardening food in small, organized plots. Instead of planting crops in long traditional rows, you divide your garden into square foot sections. This technique maximizes space, allows you to grow more varieties of plants, and makes tending your garden easier. Square foot gardening was developed by Mel Bartholomew, an engineer whose hobby was gardening. One reason the square foot method is structured into grids. He got the idea after watching several community garden plots get overrun with weeds. He then wrote the iconic book Square Foot Gardening. I bought that original in 1981. There are several new editions, which I'll link below. It is a very good book to have. Well, we think of Mel Bartholomew as the founder of square foot gardening. He built that idea on some of the more ancient gardening techniques. We have quite a bit of archaeological evidence of the way people gardened. In the Middle Ages, raised beds were popular, and there were often kitchen gardens using compact raised beds outside of castles. Each square foot is like its own mini garden, and you plant a different type of plant in each section. That's the reason for the grid. Mill used the dimensions 4 by 4 because he felt that was a manageable size. That's 1.2 meters squared for my metric friends. But you can make your beds whatever size fits you. In fact, my cousin made some for my aunt, which were raised and only 2 feet wide, so adapt as you see fit. Just make it divisible by 12 inches. Mel's gardens were 6 to 8 inches deep, and if you get a kit like this one, they will come in that height. This is okay for many summer annuals, but a tomato can easily have 24-inch roots when field planted. So, my philosophy is to use 2 by 10s and nail them together to create a solid and deep structure. You can do something a little bit fancier to fit your neighborhood if you need. Like any other garden, you want to give some thought to location. Is it sunny and is there access to water? Very important things to ask yourself. However, if your backyard does not have an abundance of sunshine, then after this, check out my video on vegetables that grow well in partial shade. So you can make your grids with any straight material, although honestly, I do suggest using wood or bamboo, something stiff that will not move or sag. I used some leftover flower netting ones, and as you can see here, it was a disaster. It shifted, and you can see where it knocked over some seedlings, so I had to remove it. After you build your bed or purchase a kit, you will need to fill it with soil. The soil is the life of your garden. You want light, fertile soil, especially since you will be planting densely. Mel had a particular mix that he used, which was 1/3 each of compost, vermiculite, and peat moss. He was quite insistent about this combo, but I never followed this particular piece of advice because that's 14 cubic feet of material, or 7 5-gallon buckets each of the compost, peat, and vermiculite. And honestly, that gets expensive. Furthermore, as an environmentalist, I want to reduce my use of peat and am looking at alternatives. Peat is harvested from peat bogs, which are wetland ecosystems that take thousands of years to form. Peatlands play a significant role in storing carbon, and when the peat is harvested or peatlands are drained, the stored carbon is released into the atmosphere. Peatlands also play a crucial role in water regulations. They act as natural sponges, absorbing rainwater and slowly releasing it over time, which helps to prevent flooding and maintain water quality. Coconut coir is a great alternative for peat with the same water absorption qualities. And it is a byproduct of the coconut industry, so very sustainable. It is, however, quite expensive and takes a lot to fill 1/3 of your bed. So I have always used a mix of garden soil, some vermiculite, and lots of compost. I layer my compost pile so it turns out very light and rich in nutrients. Here's my list of browns and greens to put in your compost pile. I have several composting videos you can check out. If you don't have your own compost, it's pretty reasonable to buy. I would get several different kinds to have a well rounded selection of nutrients, as Poma brand has several different kinds of compost. So back to the grid. After your beds are ready and the grid is in place, you can start planting or deciding what to plant, since planning is crucial, especially if you have a small space. You can check out my book for growing information on many vegetables. So we have a 4x4 plot divided into 16 1-foot squares. Each square will hold a different plant or plants. You'll plant different amounts depending on the crop. This is based on the mature size and growing habits of the plants. So for instance, a tomato needs an entire 1-foot square, while you can grow 16 radishes in a 1-foot square. So here are some examples of different vegetables and the space they need. Planting is important in the square foot garden method. You can see that you can grow a lot of food in a small space. I will have some additional charts on the website. But what if you want to grow enough food to feed a family or to make preserves? That is completely doable using the square foot method. However, you will need more beds. So it comes down to your space and how much you would like to grow. So back to the bed I showed you earlier. So this bed is 2 feet by 12 feet and 10 inches deep. It's filled with compost, some vermiculite, and biocomp, and has hoops with garden fabric in case we got some chilly weather. It held 3 cabbages, 4 broccolis, 4 Swiss chard, 4 Latino kale, 6 red Russian kale, 2 arugulas, 3 squares of lettuce, and 6 squares of onions. Because it was a pretty close knit group of plants, I did fertilize it every 2 weeks with fish emulsion. Attaching PVC pipes to your beds is a great way to extend your season. You can then attach either garden fabric or sagebrush to them to protect your plants. Square foot gardening also makes succession planting easy. When you harvest a square, you simply fluff up the soil a bit, add a couple handfuls of compost, and sow seeds or put in transplants for another crop. That way, you have a continuous supply of vegetables. Using trellis helps to use that valuable vertical space. Beans, cucumbers, summer squash, and even melons do well on a trellis. Melons are heavy, so just make sure you give them the support they need. So how many 4-foot beds will you need? Well, for one person who just wants to have a nice fresh salad a few times a week during the growing season, then one bed is doable. However, the more veggies and herbs you eat, then the more 4-foot beds you need. I will be putting some designs on the website, so look for those if you want some ideas. In the meantime, keep gardening and check out this video on another cool gardening tactic, hugelkultur. I appreciate all my subscribers. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe to help me grow. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a perfect sunny day.